Okay.
So when a customer says, I want to talk to him first and get back to you, the first thing you want to say is you want to show them that you're on their side, right? So that you're actually, it's not like a you versus them. It's like, oh, I'm actually with you. And so what you say is you say, oh, Mrs. Jones, I don't want to call anybody that doesn't want me to talk to him either. That's actually, and then what you do is you provide the solution. So anytime you're handling an objection, you always show empathy first. You always
Okay.
clarify so that they feel heard. So, Mrs. Jones, what I'm hearing is you're just a little bit nervous about, you just want to make sure that they know that I'm going to be calling first and that they're okay with it. Is that right? And they're like, that's right. Okay. Mrs. Jones, I'm actually 100% on the same page. I don't want to call anybody either that you don't want or that doesn't want me to call them. That's comfortable for nobody. Ms. Jones, that's actually why the app is so amazing because the app allows you to send an introduction text and the text is super simple. It's going to say, hey, Cheryl, this is Rhonda. Or, hey, Cheryl, I want to introduce you to Rhonda, my Cutco rep. She does a short, fun presentation about a product called Cutco. Just listen, she gets credit. She's super nice. And then that way, your friends, Mrs. Jones, uh, when we text that out, I'll be in the text message. And if they're interested, if they're cool with it, usually they send a thumbs up. If they're not cool with it, they'll say, hey, no, thanks. And then I'll know to delete them off the list. Most people just, are like, okay, cool, sounds good. And then that way, if they're not interested, no problem. And then that way your friends aren't going to get mad at you or anything like that because you introduced me to them before I was going to call them and then that way we both know who's okay to call. So can you go ahead and hit the next step for me, Mrs. Jones, and mark anybody you think I'm not looking for people you think would buy, just nice people who might be willing to take a look. And then afterwards I'll show you how to do the introduction text. So, and then you just ask for the order. So who do you think is nice? And then you go through it that way. Does that help?
Yeah, that does.
Okay. So what I would do is I'm going to like I've got this recorded. I'm
Uh-huh.
going to I'll upload it to my YouTube channel and then I can send it to you. And then what I would do if I were you is I'd memorize like that verbiage of how to handle that with the customer. Um, so that way you're able to be super confident with your next customer that says, "Oh, let me reach out to him first." Because what happens is your like Cutco sells itself, and you know that in the demo. You've already sold a bunch of Cutco.
Right.
Um, but what happens is you're selling the customers on you when you're asking for recommendations. And so the first thing that I always tell everybody is memorize the approach. Do you have it memorized yet? It's okay if you don't, but do you have it memorized word for word?
Pretty close. Yeah.
Pretty close. So
Yeah.
I always tease people and I'm like, hey, you're either pregnant or you're not. So you don't have it memorized yet, and that's okay. Um, but I'm going to really challenge you to memorize it within like the next 24 hours, even. It's not too crazy.
Okay.
So that way you could do it with your eyes closed. Mrs. Jones, how'd you like my demo? Great. Go ahead and pull out your cell phone, answer the next few questions for me. There's no need to make me sound better than I really am. I want to get real feedback so I can keep improving. Now, there's one more really important part. Here's where you can really help me out. See, I get paid every time I show, right? When you have it memorized to that level, you're able to slow it down. You're able to emphasize some words. If you're in person, you're able to look straight into their soul and say, there's one more really important part. And they're able to really hear that from you. And they're a lot more comfortable giving you recommendations because of the way you asked. Secondly, when you confidently handle their objection and say, oh, that's actually why the app exists, you're not the only customer to say that, Ms. Jones. Everybody says that. The reason the app exists is so you can introduce me to them. And it makes it so much easier. Besides, without any recommendations, I'm not able to do any more appointments. It's the lifeblood of my business. It really is the most important part. So, let's go through. And that's where you just say, hey, let's go through. And you can just pick even like five people who you think might be nice enough just to who you think would see me, and I'll show you how to send the introduction text. And
Okay.
that will solve the objection that you're getting probably 65 to 80% of the time. The other 20% of the time doesn't matter how well you handle that objection. Your customers are still going to say, nah, not giving any recommendations. Um, my mother-in-law didn't give me any recommendations. Or my girlfriend's mom, I had to marry into the family to get the rest of the recommendations at that point. But that's how you want to handle that one. That's a joke, by the way. But yeah, still didn't give me any recommendations, and that's okay. Some will, some won't. Who cares who's next? But it's about maximizing the people you do have.
Okay.
Yeah.